Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. It is July 13th, 2019, and I'm your co-host, Ryan, joined by...
Also your co-host, Lobos. Hi.
Hi, Lobos.
What's up?
What game are we playing today?
We're playing Super Metroid. Well, we're talking about playing
Are you
Super
sure it's
Metroid.
not Metroid 3? Because we just saw the title screen said Metroid 3, but now it's saying Super Metroid.
It's both, because it's the third Metroid game, but it's also Super on Super Nintendo, where everything was Super, because it had to be. Yeah.
You know, it's actually kind of weird, because I don't think I see the words Metroid 3 anywhere else in this game.
I don't see the word Super Metroid anywhere else in this game.
But we do see the last Metroid, as we're just looking at the title sequence here. And at the very beginning, it says basically the last Metroid is in captivity. And if you remember, it's actually voiced. It's really bad.
It's
really bad.
Downsampled 100 times, and it's like this nerdy guy going, "The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace." It's funny. But anyways, so we kick off kind of with a recap of what's happened in the first two games of
you know what's
Metroid
funny during this
Metroid 2.
recap is Samus is shooting Mother Brain, but actually gets hit. So I actually wonder if this is one of these things where it's like some low-level designer is like, wait, we need to capture some footage here, so just go and fight Mother Brain, whatever. And
I think it's to show that it's not an even battle. It's like, oh, there's hits here, there's hits there,
okay.
But she takes down Mother Brain, so it's like that victory is clinched.
Yeah, and what do we get for that victory?
Well, so she ends up blowing up the planet of Zebes. And then I actually don't even know where Metroid 2 takes place, but she has to go destroy all the Metroids.
So they take the Metroid and they bring it back to the station here.
Well, you're skipping Metroid 2, you see. On Metroid 2, she's on the home planet of the Metroids, I think, and you go there to destroy all of the Metroids, and it's like that's the tracker, that's the objective of the game, and I think you do it, but then at the very end, there's like a Metroid egg, and the egg hatches, and it's this Metroid baby, and she's like, but then the Metroid baby is like, I'm cute.
Okay.
And then she's like, oh, okay. Well, let's take this back.
And then so you bring it back to the Cersei
Lannister's station.
Cersei Space Colony.
It's Ceres.
Ceres
station.
That's that word.
Yeah. So that all the humans could do terrible experiments and harness the power of the Metroid. I don't know how terrible they are, but anyways, they're
probably pretty. So we're in a spacefaring society. I'd like to think that we're very
ethical,
although scientific research.
The broader the. Yeah, never mind. Anyways, you take the Metroid and drop it off with some scientists, and they're like, yeah, this is going to do awesome. And then you leave, and then you get a signal almost immediately that's like, Ceres is under attack! And that's where the game begins, and you just plop down, and you're Samus.
Yeah, and they have this sort of blue filter. I don't know if it's a filter or it's just the tile set, but it's really cool because it's blue. If you know anything about film, which, I'm a film expert.
Please tell us.
Yes, I will. I'm glad that you've asked.
Please elaborate.
Blue has like a calming effect and can be used for that sort of like downplaying of a scenario. And so I wonder if this is like sort of that just, very like empty feeling. And you cross over, I think, the research module or whatever, and it's been broken. That's presumably where the little Metroid had been contained.
You see all these dead scientists on the ground and this and that. And then you come across this baby Metroid, and you're like, everything's okay.
And you try to pick it up, and it's like, well, what's going on? And then an eye appears.
And then Ridley appears, which is this giant, spiky pterodactyl with a spike tail that stabs you with it and flies around all randomly, except not randomly, but does it.
Well, as I learned that Ridley is the leader of the space pirates.
There you go.
And so I was kind of thinking, it's like, how does one get a dragon thing to lead space pirates? Because they don't. I presume that the space pirates are human. But.
I don't think so, because it's like the space pirates make up like all these enemies. Like you see them much later in the game, like in Lower Norfair. It's like these ninja guys with they're like mantis enemies, and I think it's just he leads by being much more powerful.
Humanoid. Then.
Yeah, humanoid. Yeah, sure. bipedal at least, but anyways, so Ridley appears, snags the baby Metroid, and you try to fight, and maybe you win. If you're really good, you can actually tear down Ridley's health bit by bit, but you can't actually kill him.
So if you do too much damage, Ridley will drop the baby Metroid, but then come back and pick it up.
Then he comes back, picks it up, and flies off, as if you had failed the scripted fight as intended anyways.
Well, now what we've got going on is we're actually trying to escape the ship. There is a hard time limit, and the screen is rotating.
Yeah. Is that some Mode 7 action going on there?
It sure looks like it.
It looks like it.
I don't know that they use that anywhere else in the game, but it is very cool because it's something I would imagine is, Super Metroid came out in 2000. Sorry, not 2000. Came out in 1994 in Japan, April in North America, April 1994. And so, was that early in the Super Nintendo life? I feel like it was.
I think so. I think it launched in like 92?
Okay, we'll go with that. And I feel like this was one of those things that would have blown my mind. Lobos is doing some fact
I'm doing
checking.
some quick research.
Yeah.
1990.
Okay,
wow,
so
that's earlier than I thought. Wow.
So maybe this was like, old news by then, the whole Mode 7 stuff. But at the same time, I still think it's cool because you are, trying to run away, and then there's just this extra dynamic of the screen tilting, which would kind of. And this is just the start of the game. So
That's the start of the game.
What other tricks is this game going to have for me?
Right. We didn't actually mention that after Ridley flies away, like what the reason that you need to escape is the whole station is exploding and there's steam shooting out everywhere, and it like hits you and stuns you for a second. And the first time it's real hectic because you're like, I don't know what the heck. Where do I go? I guess I leave. And climbing that room with all the steam and the tilting and the way that you control Samus can be a bit tough at first, yeah. But you make it out, or you don't, and then you restart. But then you make it out, and Samus flies off. The station explodes, and she comes back to the planet Zebes, which is where she originally destroyed Mother Brain. And you arrive, and the planet's kind of empty. And one thing I want to mention about Super Metroid that is, I don't know, very, very, like, the noteworthy thing to mention is the ambience in this game is so strong. Like, a lot of the music is just kind of, like, creepy, or, and there's a lot of areas that are just empty, but they instill feelings in you. You're like, I'm uneasy with what's going on here.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's Crateria or Brinstar that has this theme, but it's kind of like boop, 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 boop,
Oh, that's the item room thing.
It's just like single notes.
Yeah.
And I would be hard pressed to say it's a melody, but at the same time, it sort of is like what you're saying. It's setting that scene for that sort of disturbance there. Yeah,
it becomes something that that you're fond of, because every time you hear it, you're like, oh, I'm near an item. Yeah. So that's cool. But yeah, the first time you enter, it's just like there's no real rhyme or rhythm to the sound, and you're like, what's going on? This is weird.
So the objective here is we need to get a couple of items to start progressing. We've already got them in the video, but just to make sure everyone's aware, you need the morph ball. Which is pretty much the first item that you get once you are on Zebes. Don't restart Windows. And once you pick up the morph ball, then the planet kind of comes to life. Whether that means that you like triggered some sort of self-defense mechanism and all the creatures appear, or whatever. From that point on, as you backtrack or enter new screens, then there's enemies and this and that. Yeah, and then after that, you have to get the missiles, and the missiles will allow you to enter the red doors. So there's two sort of doors you're introduced at the beginning. There's a blue door, which you can shoot a couple times with your normal, I don't know what you call it, just your arm cannon.
Yeah, your blaster.
And then it'll open, you can go through there. The red doors require 5 missiles to open. So you're hard gated on progression until you find those missiles. So once you get the missiles, you can go get the bomb, which is the third item you need. And when you pick up the bomb, you fight the is it Chozo?
Torizo.
Oh, Torizo statue.
Or Chozo I think is
that
also.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Chozo. I don't know what
like that.
Torizo is. So there's a boss later that is the golden Torizo.
Yeah, that is much later.
But I believe the normal ones are Chozo, which in original Metroid, pretty much all the items you pick up are held by a Chozo statue, and you pick the item up and you're like, okay, cool, let's move on. So one of the first things they do in Super Metroid is make that statue come to life, which is
that's really cool.
Yeah, if you didn't know, you're like, okay, cool, sweet, I got this item, and then it comes to life and fights you, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and I've played a little bit of Metroid, but it was always a little too much for me because this is the first game that has a map.
Right. This is the first Metroid game.
And I really believe that games like this need a map for me to really enjoy that.
I will say Metroid 1 is pretty rough if you go back to it now because, especially with the limited memory they had to work with, a lot of the rooms look exactly the same. There's not a lot of variety in the texture, but Super Metroid takes it to the next level in those terms and makes it so that it's not such a painful experience backtracking and getting lost. So it adds the map. It has more, space for varying looking rooms that are more memorable and this and that. So.
Now, speaking of memorable rooms, we are in a very memorable room as we've just entered the boss fight for the Spore Spawn. And, this one actually always reminded me of the Final Fantasy creature. I think it's called a Malboro.
Oh, yeah,
it's the one that spawns the bad breath at you.
Yeah.
And I'm actually wondering which came first. But in any case, this fight is actually pretty easy because there's sort of this plant that's tethered to an area in the level. So you have this head that's sort of bobbing up and down, left and right, and it's spewing these little spores on you, which you can shoot to get ammo and health. And actually all the bosses, I think, have a mechanic in Super Metroid for these are things you can shoot to replenish your supply.
I believe Ridley doesn't, but... and Fantoon doesn't as well. Oh, no, Fantoon does. Fantoon does. Yeah. But most of them do have this mechanic. And there are corners of the room that you can go sit in and be completely safe from at least the main boss. But you got to get up, and the boss will stop occasionally and kind of open its mouth.
Yeah, we'll call it a mouth.
Maybe eyes, so it can see you and look where you are or something.
It is not. It's very inaccurate in what it's shooting.
Yeah,
so I could see eyes.
Yeah. So and then that's its kind of weak spot. You jump up, shoot it with a missile, and that's how you kill it. And at this point in the game, this is where you are intended, at least, to acquire super missiles for the first time.
Because you actually, once you enter this room, you have a new type of door, which is sort of a lime green type thing.
Right.
And it's like, well, how do I open that? Well, it's the super missile. Only requires one super missile to open those green doors, though.
Right. Shoot as many missiles as you want, but it will not open unless you have super missiles.
Now, after that, there's this area where there's this sort of fracture in the ground, and it's kind of cool because it does really telegraph, hey, you should probably try to blow this up. There's a couple other places in the game I think they could do a little bit better telegraphing that I want to talk about later.
Right.
But this one, I think it is necessary for you to actually go on and blow this area up and use your morph ball to drop down in this little tiny hole. And you go into this long hallway, which is sort of this green thing, and you see a mini... Was it a mini Kraid?
Mini Kraid. And those are space pirates, I believe, that you fight there.
You're right. But as you're going up to Kraid, there's actually, in the ceiling, there's almost like a viper face. There's like two eyes and viper teeth.
Yeah. So in the original Metroid, when you fight Kraid originally, there's that face. And so it harkens back to the original.
So because I was wondering, like, that seems really... purposefully done. So I was like, what is that? Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so you go past like this mini Kraid and you're like, oh, that kind of looks like Kraid from the first one. He died relatively easily. And then you encounter Kraid just like you do in Metroid 1, and he's kind of this hulking, big-bodied, spiky, green, multi-eyed thing. Yeah. And what's different in Super Metroid, they take everything from Metroid and just kind of take it to the next level.
Would you say they make it Mega? Or
I would say they make it super.
Oh, okay. All right.
But anyways, in Super Metroid, they make him stand up. In the original Metroid, you just fought him
when he was laying down.
Yeah, in a one-room thing. But with Super Metroid, they have these big multiple room-sized areas, and they take that they use that to their advantage to create some more memorable fights.
And when Kraid gets larger, these platforms come out, and you're intended to jump on the platforms and use that as sort of your perch to try to shoot the boss. And he has this hand that he kind of waves in front of him.
Yeah, that blocks shots.
He blocks the missile. So you have to time. There's two things. He opens up his mouth, and that's when you got to shoot him. But then his hand will occasionally then block that. So you have to time both his mouth opening and his hand blocking the shot. So it did take a little bit of work for me. I think I a couple attempts on this fight. But the reward is the
Varia suit, or Varia suit, which is one of 2 suits in the game that I believe Varia suit exists in Metroid 1 as well. It allows you to traverse hot areas. It's an orange suit as opposed to Samus's default yellow and red uniform. So that we didn't really talk about this, but this is probably this and Castlevania Symphony of the Night are like the 2 games that coined the Metroidvania genre, really, which is the whole idea of it is you've got kind of this big open world, and there's a lot of places that you can't reach at the beginning, but you find your way from one spot to another, collecting new items that give you access to these places that you couldn't previously traverse.
So there's a lot of backtracking.
There's a lot. Every time you get a new item, you're like, oh, now I got to go back all the way through and see where I could use this and this, because they always hide all sorts of secrets and items and things like that. Which is, it might not be for everyone, but it's a different kind of rewarding.
That type of game really lives and dies by the quality of its map.
Sure.
And how much it's conveying. This is a thing that you couldn't get to before, and future games actually would indicate like, oh, there was actually an item here.
Right.
And I don't know if future Metroid games did that, but other games in the genre.
Sure.
So we're actually we've already got the power bombs, and there's a couple other items that we've picked up. We've got the high jump boots, which allow us to jump high.
Yep.
There you got the Spazer, which I guess is like a space.
It's a triple laser. That one really is just for extra damage and not necessarily for access or anything. But these other ones, high jump boots, power bombs. Power bombs are huge. There's also power bomb doors that are yellow. You need those to open that up.
We also have a speed booster, which is required in the game to actually. So there's some concrete walls or whatnot that you can run into at a high speed and break through, and you'll need that. And then you have an ice beam, which I don't think that's a crit path thing, but it is a nice thing.
It can help you for traversing areas because you can freeze enemies in the air and use them as platforms, this and that. I know we're watching on screen here a boss fight, but I really want to go back and highlight the speed booster. Yeah. Because first of all, you have a sprint button in this game, which a lot of people, believe it or not, myself and some other people who I've watched, don't realize there's a sprint button until a particular screen where you're walking and the floor falls out from underneath you and there's spikes above you and you're like, how do I get past this? And then there's a sprint button. So with regular sprint, Samus is pretty darn fast. And then you pick up speed booster, and the whole area is designed such that you grab it and then the whole place starts caving in, so you need to get out really fast. So you start sprinting, and then it just adds this whole other layer of sprint to it, and it's just insane, the speed. It's just like, I've never seen such speed on the Nintendo console before.
Yeah, and Samus will actually start glowing, I believe, when you start going faster.
Yep, she glows blue.
So we just finished up Crocomire, and we got the grappling beam. Crocomire is an interesting fight where it doesn't really have health per se,
right?
But it just has it's sort of this tug of war mechanic where it tries to advance on you, and on one end is Crocomire, and then so on the right end is Crocomire, on the left end is a bunch of spikes.
Yeah.
So eventually someone's got to give, and what you want to do is blast Crocomire in the face so many times that it pushes Crocomire into the lava and dies.
Right.
But does he?
Uh-oh. Well, yeah, each time you hit him in the mouth, he'll back up a little bit, and that's based on how much damage you do. So if you come back later with, like, your supercharged, like, power beam. Like it only takes like 2 shots. 1 shot, you shoot him and he'll back up for like 10 seconds. But yeah, he drops into this vat of acid. His skin burns off and it's just bones, and you're like, all right, I won. And so you try to figure out where to go next.
What do? All I have spikes and lava.
Yeah, you have a spike wall and acid. It hasn't
improved my situation.
Yeah. And so you go to the spike wall, and suddenly the spike wall gets knocked down, and who shows up but Crocmire's skeleton, and he's back, but then he just keels over and dies.
But he does start charging at you. You're like,
he does, yeah.
And you know, it's all new to me. So when I was like, oh, what do I do? Because I have lava over here. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And then it just kind of falls over around. That's a real kind of cool gotcha there.
Yeah, good stuff.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and we passed this a little bit ago in the video, but there's these flower-like creatures that
carnivorous plants, yeah.
And some of the rooms will be lined on the bottom and the top with them. And so what happens is when you jump in it, it kind of holds you and is damaging you, and you have to. I don't know if you can get out of there faster, or if it just I'm gonna hold you for 5 seconds and just damage you.
No, if you fall into one of these plants, it damages you and holds you in place for like 2 seconds, and then after that 2 seconds, you have like 1 or 2 more seconds to get out, and if you don't, it just reapplies that grab again.
Yeah, and that was really frustrating because they would put these next to little platforms. And so often what would happen is I'd get captured by one of them, and I'd be frantically trying to jump, and then I'd jump into the ceiling above.
Right, and then get caught by another one.
And then I'd fall, and it was just this cycle of like, oh, it was bad. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some rough areas.
But they don't have any of those in the area we're in now, which is the ghost ship.
The ghost ship.
And this is another situation where you go into it, and it's largely... well, dead, obviously.
Yeah.
But what I mean is there's really not much to do. There's only, like the start of the game, there's kind of only one path you can go. And while there is this little skull thing that follows you around, there's no space pirates or, it just seems really cool. It's back to this ominous exploration thing. And I really love that atmosphere of jumping in there.
Yep. And you continue to explore until you find a boss, which all the boss rooms are preceded by this door that has an eyeball on it, which you can either kill in one hit with super missile or three shots with regular missiles. And so every time that a boss is coming. And Phantoon is a notoriously annoying / difficult boss.
Actually, on our Twitter page, Phantoon was voted the most difficult boss of Super Metroid.
There you go. Yeah, I think largely that difficulty comes in the fact that he is only vulnerable for very brief moments. He's kind of a ghost, I think is what they're getting at, the ghost ship, all this. And he'll float around and he'll drop these flames that hurt pretty bad. And if you touch him, he hurts pretty bad whenever he's active. But then at some point he will open his eye, and that's when he's vulnerable. But he also shoots out a bunch of flames, and they disappears. And
the flames have different patterns. So some of them are the circular pattern that goes outwards, and you have to time the dodge there. And then there's some that kind of rain down from the ceiling. But I'm really glad to hear that both the people on Twitter and you agree this is the one of the most difficult bosses, because now I feel vindicated that I save scum my way through this. I was like, this thing is so hard.
Yeah, he's a speedrun killer, really. An interesting thing about that fight is depending on how you damage him, he'll react differently. So if you use Ice Beam with a charge shot and shoot him, he'll immediately disappear, and then he'll start doing his floating around in vulnerable state again. If you shoot him with a super missile, he'll disappear and then reappear at the top of the screen, and he'll sit there invulnerable for a long time and shoot flames. So that kind of you don't want to necessarily use super missiles, both because it's slow, but then you have this big phase where you can't do anything. I assume
there's some amount of manipulation you can do in a speed run to maximize his time that he's going
to well, this might be a good time because you use one of these special weapons that are never taught you in the game, except maybe in the opening sequences. In particular, this one is called X Factor. So there's
the X Factor.
It's called X Factor. Okay. That's what it's called. There's 3 special attacks that require power bombs, the charge beam, which allows you to charge shots and do a stronger hit, and then one of the other beams, whether it be wave, ice, or plasma, or spazer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's actually 4.
Yeah, there's 4. Sorry, but you need a power bomb. so you select your power bombs on your item equipment loadout, and you only equip charge beam and one other beam, and then you press and hold the attack button, and once it fully charges, it unleashes this special attack, depending on what the beam combination that you have is. The X factor is with the wave beam, and these 4 projectiles come from the corners of the screen and kind of center on Samus. And if you can time it right, all 4 of those will hit at once and deal a ton of damage. And it only takes 2 of those to kill Phantoon. But it's very high skill and very timing based. So
yeah, I was gonna say, looking at them, I haven't used them, but they look largely useless. There's like 1 or 2 maybe useful, but some of the spread patterns on those are just like, how are you ever gonna hit with that?
Right. Yeah.
But if you do want to see videos of those, the Saturday Morning Gaming Twitter account does have those linked. So head on over there and take a look at them. They're really cool to see. And it looks like they did put some serious work into the VFX of that, which is sort of surprising when you consider, like, they don't even mention that in the manual.
Right,
it's just sort of like a special thing. There's also another thing called what was it?
The Crystal Flash?
Crystal Flash.
This is a super specific ability that you need to have 20 missiles, or maybe it's 10.
20 missiles.
Is it 20? Okay. 20 missiles, 20 super missiles, 20 power bombs.
I think it's only 10 power bombs.
Oh, 10. Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, it's 11.
Yeah,
because the way that this
and
ability
you have to
works.
Be under 50 or below health.
50 or below health. And it's really, if you have a bunch of items, you're in a tight spot health-wise, and you just need to heal, like, in an emergency. You select the power bombs again, and you go into your morph ball form. You lay a power bomb, and you hold the button while you have laid it, and then Samus will, like, kind of rise up into the air and form this, like, bubble and heal all the way to full while consuming all those all that ammo that we were talking about earlier.
Well, actually, will only heal you up to 99, and any of your reserve tanks will not be.
Oh, sure, yeah. It doesn't.
And this is another example of a really cool VFX, because she's actually, it almost looks like she's being birthed, because she's goes into like the fetal position.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really cool. And I was like, well, why don't we make that like a bigger thing in the game? But I still applaud the developers for those little things here.
Yeah, and they do show Samus do that in the opening, like, intro, but it doesn't, like, tell you how to do it. So you just kind of figure it out, maybe find out through a Nintendo Power or a friend or whatever.
Sure. Or the Saturday Morning Gaming Show.
Or the Saturday Morning Gaming Show.
Now, I wanted to talk about the room we just left, because it's a room where there's like 2 pipes on the left and the right side, and then it looks like there's something that's been exploded. And we actually see these other rooms that are like that, but there's a crystal or a glass sort of jar connecting those 2 tubes.
Right.
And I actually had to look up on the internet because I got stuck. I was like, where am I supposed to go? And maybe that was the hint for what to do next, because what you're supposed to do is there's a room that's similar to this where you can actually power bomb and blow up this glass, this glass connector, and that allows you to access more of the game. But I had no idea that a power bomb would destroy this glass thing.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Now I realize what you were going for. I also, specifically in that room, there's a cool little.
Actually, let's just, as we go in.
Oh, yeah.
Because let me just follow up the thought here.
Sure.
Because the progression, you're like, all right, new areas, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm on the right track.
Yep.
And then you drop down through the secret floor, and it brings you to that place I was talking about, with the 2 connectors and the glass thing.
Right.
And so it's like, well, now this is where I've already been.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And again, ultimately, what you're supposed to do right in this room is drop a power bomb to blow it up. All right, so continue.
Yeah, I was going to say what I thought you were going to say about that other room that you had passed. There's a room with some crabs in it, and there's, like, paths to the left and right.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool. And there's these crabs just climb along the walls. So you're shooting them, whatever. But if you pay attention, there's a crab that comes from the bottom of the screen.
Genius.
And you're like, oh. So you try, and sure enough, you can squeeze down into a little passage down there, and there's a whole room.
Yeah, that is really
awesome
cool.
design stuff.
It's it's one of those things where it's very subtle.
Yep.
And it only happens when you first enter the room, it's like it happens in the first 2 seconds.
Right,
and then
right.
I think they might eventually kind of path back down there.
Yeah.
But it takes a while.
Most likely you've killed them by then.
Absolutely. And we've entered the room. This is the first time in the game where you encounter hostile Metroid. You've got this sort of pinkish, purplish room with tons of pipes. And the Metroids are actually kind of stuck inside of these pipes.
So I forget what these are called. They're actually like something like mock Metroids or pseudo Metroids. They're not full on Metroids.
Oh.
Because when you meet a Metroid, I think in 1 or 2, like they are devastating to meet. And these are pretty bad. They're annoying, but they're not like full Metroid capability. So they're like more like baby, or I think they're actually like created Metroids that aren't fully they're attempted clones that
makes sense. So Ridley might be the result of his experiments. He captured the Metroid and he's now trying to clone for a space army.
Yeah
That makes sense.
It could be, absolutely. Now we didn't talk about it, but after killing Fantoon and exploring that ghost ship, we pick up the gravity suit, which just allows Samus to traverse through water as if it was just air. So that allows you to, like you said before, there's a big glass tube. You blow it up with a power bomb, and outside that glass tube is all water, and that allows you to traverse Meridia, which is this area that we're in on the stream now, and fighting Botwoon, this mini boss.
And Botwoon isn't really much to talk about. I found that you can kind of stay to the left side of the screen, and it hardly will damage you.
Yep.
And so at some point, it basically became, I just stay at the left side of the screen and spam the fire button and hope that he comes out. So to set up the scene, it's a snake-like creature with 4 holes. He will enter one hole and then leave through another hole. He kind of does that on his own timing, and you have to hit his head while he's out, and he's kind of spiraling around in kind of erratic patterns, so it's a timing thing. But again, you can stay to the left side of the screen. I don't think he actually will come and hit you there.
I don't think he does.
You just have to kind of sit there and time your missiles.
Yeah.
And again, at some point I got tired of waiting and I had so much health, I was just like, I'm just going to the middle of the screen and spam my fire button, and boom, he's dead.
And as the fight goes on, he speeds up, and his body blocks your shots and everything, so it's kind of like sometimes you just want to guess which hole he's going to come out of and pre-fire so that as he shows up, it hits him. When you
mentioned the speeding up, I believe that's a mechanic for all the bosses, that they do speed up as the fight progresses. At least all the bosses that I can think of. And they all have that sort of like, they go orange and then to red.
Right.
And then red means you're basically done. You have to just
they're almost
kill
dead.
Them a couple more times there.
Yeah.
So we did just complete the boss Botwoon, and the next boss here is Dragon.
Dragon, yeah.
Dragon.
Yep.
And I want to talk about him for a little bit because there's a lot of stuff to discuss.
There's a lot of stuff, yeah.
So as we see in the fight, you drop into a room that you basically can't get out of. You can jump high with the space boots, but you can't jump high enough to get out of the room.
Right.
So you'll need an item that you get from killing the boss to actually get out of this room. But this thing, it's this large, I guess one might call it a dragon.
Right. It's this bulbous kind of like big-bellied dragon thing that swoops around and has a bunch of little like kind of crab or lobster legs in its middle. When you first enter the fight, you see a bunch of little baby versions of it kind of floating around. They don't harm you or anything, but they're just kind of there. And then the mom shows up, or the dad, whichever way. And Dragon's got a couple simple attacks. He'll swoop at you from one side to the other, and then at some point he'll spawn on one side of the screen, start moving towards you, and drop these sticky...
like webs.
Webs. And if you get webbed, then Dragon will come grab you, and
but you can shoot those webs. And
you can shoot the webs.
A plethora of power ups, or not power ups, but health and
health
ammo.
Missiles and all that back.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get grabbed, Dragon will like hold on to you and kind of spin you around for a while, and then eventually deal some significant damage to you.
Yeah, he does some significant damage, and I really brute force my way through this fight. And I use save states, And I want to save the discussion for how you're supposed to kill him until we actually encounter him, because we're still trying to get there. Right now we're in a place with a lot of grappling hooks. So there's grappling hooks on the left side, and you can use that to sort of perch on a wall and then jump higher, or you can jump to another section. We didn't mention it, but this Meridia area has a lot of spots that have quicksand, and mechanically, trying to jump out of quicksand can be really frustrating. You basically have to, as soon as you hit the quicksand, hit jump to get a full high jump. Otherwise, it's a really stunted, like, jump that's basically just keeping you afloat. And so it can take some work to get through that particular room. Yeah, and we're actually really close to Dragon here, and you enter a room with spikes on the floor.
Right.
And it's like, well, where do you go from here? Because you actually have to go through the spikes to progress here.
Yep.
And you can... Now, I'm not sure if this is a rendering issue on the game itself, but I use the X-ray vision to scan the spikes. And I was like, well, these spikes are not real. They look like they're fake. Because they just stop rendering when you have the X-ray thing. So sure enough, you jump on them and you don't damage yourself.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if there's some other areas where that happens and it's not the case where they're actually fake. So I'm not sure how one would really know to go down here other than just trial and error.
Yeah, X-ray is, I think, the intended way. You're supposed to see that those spikes are fake, and then you can go through there. But yeah, one other thing, as you enter the fight, there's kind of these turrets on the wall that you have to either jump up and shoot with missiles, or you can angle up and shoot at them with missiles. It turns off the turrets, and then it's kind of a pre-part to the fight.
I did not do any of that.
Oh, nice.
I made this
Hard
fight
mode.
the hardest way because I'm an idiot. All right, so there... we've got the Dragon. He's come out and he swoops down from the left side of the screen down to the right, or to the bottom, and then goes back to the right side. So he kind of does this strafing run on you. And what I ended up doing was just like, all right, well, I think there's a strafing run coming. I'm gonna fire a couple super missiles and hope he hits.
Yep.
But what's happened right now is he's grabbed me and he just lashes you over and over with a tail.
Yep.
And I was like mashing buttons. I'm like, there's got to be something I can do here because this is just a relentless attack. Turns out there is, but it's not telegraphed super well. Lobos, you know what that is?
Well, so you can actually mash hard enough and get out.
Oh,
so that's one thing. But there is a quick kill on the boss, which I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Which, if you destroy these turrets, there's many more of those little charged ports available. Once you destroy the turrets, there's like a electrified port on the side, and you can use the grapple beam to hook onto one of these ports, and it channels the electricity through you and the boss. And if you just hold it there, it will just drain Dragon all the way dead.
Yeah, so
it hurts you, but not nearly as bad.
So when he grabs you, all you have to do is latch on with your grappling beam, and then he's dead.
Yep.
And that would have been great to know. And, so I guess maybe the way I fought this was the way a normal player would fight this thing.
Oh yeah, I absolutely think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's got. Otherwise, Dragon's got like a soft belly, and that's where you'd hit it. But it's big, so as it tries to pass you, you generally want to jump over it, but then you can't shoot it in the back because it's all armored and shelled.
So again, I pretty much just face tanked this, and then when I needed health, I would shoot the webs that he was shooting at me. But it was really just as I was thinking he would come down, I would just start spamming the missile buttons and hope to clip him with like 2 or 3.
Yep.
And so... of course, the super missiles are going to do a lot more damage, but those are slower firing, so you have to be more timing. And you don't really have an indication when he's coming down to attack.
Right.
So you kind of have to be like, all right, he's off the screen, wait for, say, 3 seconds, I think it was, and then start firing. But then sometimes he tricks you because he does 2 attacks. He does either the strafing attack or the slow attack where he's spitting the webs. And so the slow attack with the web is not going to get hit by, the attacks you're trying to do to capture the strafing attack there. Right. So very complicated fight, I'd say. A lot of mechanics. I applaud the developers for having that sort of quick kill there to use the grappling hook there. And
always a fan of that.
What we get here is the space jump.
And
so I had no idea what space jump does. And again, this might be something that they cover in the manual. So, but I thought it was cool to see. Is like here is me trying to figure out, in the video we're watching, me trying to figure out what is this. So I know that the space jump has to be something that allows me to get out of this tall room because no other item does that. So I'm like, all right, do I use the grappling beam, hook, or whatever?
Right.
Turns out you can sort of like jump in midair and just keep jumping over and over and over.
You can infinite jump with that thing.
But the timing is really weird, and I couldn't figure it out.
It's a tricky timing.
It seems like it's like when you start going down, so you jump, you hit your apex,
yeah.
then you start going down slightly, and that's when you time it. Is that correct?
Yep. And underwater, it's much easier. They have a much wider frame distance for you to hit that button. And then in regular air, it's much tighter. But once you get the timing down, you can just fly across pretty much every screen.
Now we kind of raced ahead, and we're on the next boss, which you were talking about, the golden
Chorizo. Yeah. So the space jump, I don't think necessarily gets you access down here, but we head down to Lower Norfair, which is this lava-filled area with this kind of ominous music. One of the only... This and Green Brinstar, I think, are the main ones that have a non-ambient, like, really... Well, this is still not many instruments in this track. It's mostly chanting and stuff. But one of the less ambient tracks in the game, I would say. And there's bubbling lava everywhere, and everything gets even more dangerous. And there's space pirates that you can only kill with like the most powerful, I think, plasma beam and power bombs. They really start limiting what enemies can be hurt by. But you find this golden Chorizo room, and it ends up being a boss. Here's a piece of trivia that you didn't have. Give it to me. So there is a developer code that's left in the game that is referred to by the community as the GT code because it has to do with the Golden Chorizo room. Okay. So if you enter Golden Chorizo's room while holding all of the face buttons, X, Y, A, B, the game will just grant you like 7 E tanks, about 30 missiles, 30 super missiles, like 20 power bombs, the grappling hook, and the X-ray scanner. So there's actually a speedrun.
That's really cool.
A speedrun route where you just rush using glitches to get there as soon as possible. You get all the items, and then you kill the bosses kind of in reverse order.
So I suspect that was put there so developers could quickly just test out that boss fight.
Yeah, test stuff, but it was left in the game, and
Very
so
cool.
it's a special place.
Well, the Golden Chorizo has a really interesting mechanic, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. So what happens is he's, as far as I know, you can only shoot him with missiles and damage him with missiles. And
a charged shot.
That does take a while there. So what happens is you shoot your first missile, and he grabs it out of the air.
Oh yeah, I forgot he does that.
And then he throws it back at you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's basically, when you're thinking about how many missiles does it take to actually kill him, you have to factor in the opening salvo is the -1, and then you fire as many as you can before he drops that one. And so that was one of those. I actually ran out of missiles, and then he's throwing stuff at you, and you have to blow them up, and then collect more missiles. So that one actually took me a couple tries to make sure that I had enough missiles. So we're actually coming up on near the end of the game here, and we've entered this room. I actually, again, looked this up. There are these 2 space pirates, which are sort of onyx, I'd say.
Sure.
And they are, you have to beat them to proceed.
Right.
And you can't damage them while they're onyx, but if you can get them to do this jump attack at you, they'll turn yellow. And I noticed that. I was like, is that okay? Am I missing something? Because I was like, all right, these occasionally turn yellow, but I can't figure out how to consistently do it.
Yep.
So that's how I looked up on the internet, and they said you have to jump over them. I think it's just the distance that you're from them. Like once you're far enough away, they turn yellow and jump attack.
You do need to be far enough away, but what it is when you first come in, they'll do a laser attack, and then they'll flip, and then they'll be eligible to do their kick.
Okay.
And so you generally just dodge their first attack, and then you want to be in the middle of the room. They won't side kick to the outsides of the room. Yeah, it's kind of mechanically, I don't know, obscure there, that a lot of first-time playthroughs get stuck there.
That one was really tricky here. Yeah. And once you do that, it's basically just a hop, skip, and a jump over to Ridley, the real Ridley that you're fighting.
Yep.
And this fight absolutely amazing. I think this was my favorite fight in the game because there's such a pacing to it. It's like I got in this rhythm where Ridley's going to the left, so I go to the right, and then Ridley goes to the right, and I go to the left.
Yeah.
He's using his tail as almost like a pogo stick to try to stab you.
Yep.
And so you can just, you have to jump up in the air and shoot him in like the face area. And it just became like one of these things where like I can see myself being able to kill this boss without getting hit because I started to understand the mechanics and the rhythm of the fight. And that's where I really think where boss fights shine is where it's like, you could do this in one hit.
Right. And there's some interesting things about this fight. So while he's pogoing, you can go all the way to like the left or the right on the platform and just stand there and he'll pogo, but he's too big, so you can just shoot up, straight up. And
now I feel like you've just,
No, I mean, it's an advanced tactic. But you have to be able to like recognize when he's going to pogo and not jump. If you jump, he cancels the pogo.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. You kind of locked him in this way here. Now Ridley will, like the other bosses, will turn red at a point halfway through his health pool. The strongest thing to use on him is charged plasma beam. If you have the plasma beam by this point, the charged plasma shot, it's 20 shots, 20 charged plasma shots. Okay. And what's interesting is you can keep wailing away on Ridley, and eventually Ridley will blow up and he's dead. But Ridley will swoop down and try and grab you, and if he grabs you, he hits you for a considerable amount of damage. But he has a health threshold at a point where if he grabs you, he's technically dead, and he'll do this self-destruct explosion. So if you shoot him 20 times with the charged plasma beam, with all those other beams equipped, you'll know he's quote-unquote out of health, and you can just go into morph ball on the platform, he'll grab you, and then he'll blow up, and then that's the fight. Whereas you probably... I have to get... see, you're just fighting him, and then he blows up. Okay. I don't know if it's health beyond that where he just definitely dies, or it's timed or something.
It's really interesting.
But yeah, it's actually a speed strat to deal enough damage and then just wait for him to grab you and self-destruct.
So you kind of have to be counting then.
Yeah. And so after
because none of the bosses have health bars, or any indication of, other than sometimes their colors change, but you don't know how much damage left.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that. So after you defeat Ridley, of course, the whole reason for doing this was to retrieve the baby Metroid.
Yeah.
And you go into the room following, and you see the capsule that the baby Metroid was in, and it's shattered.
Oh. But
the baby Metroid is missing. Oh. So there must be something else to it. And there's this room that you probably found earlier in the game that has the statues of the big bosses that you fought. And whenever you...
Only the 4 bosses.
The 4 bosses. Oh, yeah.
They're Kraid, Ridley, Phantoon, and
Dragon.
Dragon,
yep. And if you go to this room after you've killed one of the bosses, the statue kind of shatters and loses its color. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I have to do all these then. And once you do that, you come here, all the statues shatter, and then it descends and opens up a way to the final area, which is Turian.
Yeah. And... I feel like Turian is sort of like, you've already beat the game, and now it's time to just kind of, finish up the stuff. But I feel like Turian is very easy compared to the stuff we've done before. And again, once you get here, it's just like, all right, you have everything you need. And this may be different on a speedrun. You may not have all that stuff, but I have, what's that, 10 energy bars plus a reserve tank.
Yeah, plus reserve tank.
So I'm pretty well loaded here.
Yeah, the game is such that if you have a ton of stuff, that it gets super easy towards the end. I will say the speedrun comes here with 3 energy, and it's rough. It's very rough.
Now we are now entering... these are the fake Metroids you're talking about?
No, these are the actual Metroids, which are bigger. If they grab you, they latch on, and the only way
so hard to get off.
The only way to get them off you is to generally go into morph ball, drop a bunch of bombs, hope that they bounce off you, and then you freeze them, and then you can kill them with missiles. So you have to shoot them with ice beam, and you cannot leave these rooms without the Metroids being killed.
I was hoping. I was like, I got a Metroid on me. How do I get out of here?
Yep.
And I think multiple will actually latch on you at once. So I'm in a bad situation because I've got 2 Metroids on me, and I'm like, what do I do? How do I get away here?
Yep.
But I think eventually I used
that was
the
interesting.
grappling hook does do a little bit of damage.
No, so what happens is you can power bomb them several times and they will die, but that's a lot of time and ammo, and they're going to drain a lot of health while you're trying to do that.
And so what just happened is I killed 2 with the grappling hooks. I'm like, oh, this is the secret weapon.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I'm like, okay, what actually happened is it was probably just so low life, the grappling hook happened to just finish it off. But the grappling hook will actually kill these enemies. You just have to have low enough life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's a anti-speedrun strat there. But yeah, these things are really difficult, especially because they don't really give you a good indication that they're taking damage.
Right.
I'm just going to keep doing stuff and hope that...
Oh, you know what? I think in both of these cases that I saw, you laid a power bomb and then started spamming the grapple.
So, yeah, you're right. Maybe it was the power bomb that killed him.
I think it was a red herring, but that's really interesting. Huh. Yeah, well, regardless.
Yeah, once you kill those 4 Metroids, you can move on to the next room. And this is really cool because it's a sandy area, and you find these. You actually find the Torso statue, and it's like it's withered away. It's all sand, and as you approach it, it actually just crumbles. And that's really cool.
You find a bunch of life forms that are just like emaciated, and you touch them, and they just disintegrate as if they've been drained.
This is setting up some sort of scene. Yeah. I was like, all right, well, what's going on here? And then this monster comes out of the left side of the screen. And I was like, all right, it's time to fight. Let's do this. And he's just gonna walk all over me, and I'm like, all right, cool. I don't have a lot of time to figure out what's going on. Shoot some missiles, and then a big Metroid comes. And I'm like, and immediately I start shooting the Metroid. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do here? And it turns it to sand. They're like, okay, I understand what's going on. And now it's got me. And I'm down to 1 health.
Yeah, so you didn't even have much health there. It will drain your health all the way from full down to 1. And you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. But then the Metroid stops. And you're like, well, why did he stop? And he just kind of flies away. And you're like, okay.
Well, it actually is kind of like hovering over you.
It does hover over you. Yeah, I guess I'm always at the end of the screen whenever.
Okay.
So he hovers around you, and then as you get to the edge of the screen, he'll fly away.
So there's actually 3 sizes of Metroids in this game. At the beginning, there's the baby Metroid, and then we found like the medium-sized Metroids throughout the game, and then we got the large Metroid. Yeah. And I really think the implications here are that the large Metroid was the baby Metroid.
It is.
At the beginning of the game.
That's the idea.
And I'm not sure what the sort of maturation rate on them are.
Yeah,
or maybe they were like Ridley's experiments scientifically accelerated their growth or whatever.
Sure.
But needless to say, you enter the final room. Well, not the final room of the game, but we'll call it the final boss room.
Yeah. The final chamber.
It looks a lot like.
It looks Metroid exactly 1. Like Metroid 1. Well, because it's the same place, right? This has all been on Zebes.
Yeah.
And there's they're called Zebetites, these big barriers that kind of block your way. You have to shoot a ton of missiles into them to dissipate them. And there's about 3 or 4 walls full of them that you have to get through before finding Mother Brain in her capsule, her glass prison, as it were.
And I thought this was cool. I was like, oh, cool. They got a throwback to Metroid. I'm going to blow up the brain and then escape the ship. That's not what happens.
Nope. This is Super Metroid, so everything's got to be super. So you fire a bunch of missiles into Mother Brain, and it seems like, are you gonna? Is it gonna? Well, it takes quite a few missiles, but then you're like, oh, good, I beat it. It's done. Yay!
You see the explosions? Great. Let's leave. Mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
No, not quite.
Everything explodes. You're like, yay, done.
And there's just a head sitting on the ground, and I try to step on it, and you actually take damage.
Yeah, it does.
So I was like, all right, what do I...
It's a spiky head.
Okay, this isn't good. There's a large body associated with this head.
Yeah, and this fight is terrifying. I can't imagine if I played this as a kid. The music is super like dreary with like these organ like tones, and Mother Brain looks terrifying. It's this brain with spikes and 1 eye and huge teeth, and it's kind of this like cyborg mech, weird, creepy amalgamation of all sorts of stuff.
Now, I will say that I thought the pattern of this boss is pretty easy because it will do 3 attacks. It does a horizontal attack straight from the eye, which is high in the air, so you just have to be on the ground to avoid it.
Right.
And then it does this like little grenade thing, which you can jump over pretty easily.
Right.
And then it does this other attack where it's like the 3 little rings or whatever, and they kind of come at your last-ish position.
Yep.
But I find myself just kind of like, I would jump to shoot it, and I just by the nature of where I was positioned,
Right, just
most
dodge.
attacks would just miss me.
Yeah. Now there is one more attack when she's
there
around
is.
75%. There it is. That's
Okay.
that's an incredibly devastating attack. Once she's almost dead, she'll start firing these fireballs from her hands. And yeah, if you get hit by that, it's like 2 or 3 energy bars.
Yeah.
It's a ton.
So I was like, this is way too easy. There's got to be some special thing that this is going to throw at me. Like this must be the warm up. And then at some point, it's gonna hit me with some huge attack and change the fight, and it does.
It did. Yep. Rainbow beam of doom.
Now is this a forced hit?
This is a forced hit.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh crap! But
Yep.
then you go down into this pose where you're kind of like huffing and puffing, and you're like, okay, I think maybe this must be some cinematic
Scripted.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you're down and you're out, and she's going for the kill and blow, and then the Metroid comes back.
The big
At that
Metroid.
point, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
you kill it,
man.
man.
You cheer for that Metroid. That Metroid that previously almost killed you and stopped is now here, recognizes you as Mama, I guess, and then comes to your rescue to
and basically sucks the brain juices from the mother brain, and you can see it's slowing down. It turns blue, and eventually it's going to just kind of turn into that ash.
yeah, kind of like that petrified state.
And I'm like, all right, great, the fight's over.
Yep.
Time to go home. Not yet.
Not
we still
quite
have
yet.
a little bit more Metroid to do. So the Super Metroid comes and refills your health. It's like, great, I'm gonna make amends here. Then you start to see the mother brain
It's
come
life
back to
returning.
life.
Yeah.
And it is not pleased with what Metroid is doing.
Yeah.
And so Metroid kind of is taking the damage. He's definitely shielding you and energizing you. And you can see the Metroid starting to discolor.
Yep.
Ultimately, it does kind of start to go away.
It comes back for one more
attack,
swing
and dies. But it's instilled or imparted all of the power onto you, and now you have this glowy rainbow attack.
Oh yeah.
And this was so fantastic because this was like, I guess at this point you're guaranteed.
You're
to
win.
win.
Yeah, you basically win. So the Metroid explodes and like the dust from it like sprinkles down on you and empowers you with this super rainbow beam. And you have all your health back. And now when you shoot Mother Brain, her head just like rears back in agony as this insanely powerful beam is just so much for her to handle. And she's still doing her normal attacks, but you're just overpowering her, and eventually she kind of turns red.
This is a really great way to end these boss fights because you've gone through the trials and tribulations,
Right.
And now it's just like, all right, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
You're really powerful, and
Yeah.
you get to you really just stomp this boss here. So the rainbow power actually lasts for only this fight. Once the fight's over, I believe, and you leave the room, it goes away.
No, it's still here.
Oh, it's still
yeah, you
here.
have this for pretty much the remainder of the game.
Okay.
But just like in Metroid 1, as soon as you defeat Mother Brain, the entire planet begins to explode.
Yeah.
And all around you, there's explosions. And
actually, those onyx things that I had trouble with before, it actually looks like I just one-shot.
oh, yeah. The rainbow beam just takes care of everything. And they present you with this kind of like maze area where you're like, oh, crap, I got to get out of here.
This is
But-
exhilarating because there's a lot of dead ends.
yeah, there are a lot of dead ends. There's enemies, and you just got to figure out where you're going. I don't think that necessarily it's super dangerous that you'll die to normal combat, but just the fact that they slap a 3-minute timer on there, and if you don't know where you're going, you start to panic.
You don't really know how far you have to go. So
Exactly.
I'm at 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Right.
And I'm like, I feel like I'm doing good. I've hit a lot of dead ends, but then you enter this room and you fall all the way to the ground, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna make this because I have to jump up. It's like 5 or 6 screens you have to jump up.
Yeah, it's
and
super
sort
vertical.
I wouldn't say narrow platforms, but it's easy to miss one and fall.
Oh yeah, and if you get hit by a space pirate who's like flying across the screen, he'll knock you back down, and then you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And there's multiple. You have to climb twice, and then acid starts rising from the floor, and just everything starts going wrong.
Yep. And so again, we got a situation where the acid's rising, and you have small little platforms you have to jump on, and you're still not quite sure which side of the room you need to be on.
Right.
Because you actually need to be on the left side of the room,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only way you can get back up. But I went to the right side, and I was like, all right, we gotta go there. So we're at 1:30, about halfway done with the timer, and I'm like, all right, I got this, no problem. And I can start to see I get to an area where I'm like, okay, I've been here before. I know I just need to go straight up to get to the ship.
And so we didn't talk about like the base mechanics too much, but one of the tough things about platforming in Metroid is that if you're moving sideways and you hit jump, then you'll do a spin jump, which has its own momentum that will continue, and that's really hard to try and precisely jump on the platforms. But if you jump and then navigate in midair, it's just Samus standing straight up, and that's much easier to do.
That's ultimately what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
So I'm hitting this. I'm back to. Again, one of the first sections of the game, like first 5 minutes of the game on first area. What was the area called?
Brinstar?
Is it Brinstar?
I think it's Brinstar.
In any case, yeah, so I'm almost there to the ship. I can see on my map I've got about 2 screens of I just have to run horizontally, and I got 30 seconds. I'm like, great, I got this. No problem. We're going to open the door, go into the ship, and then jump on the ship and get out of here. And I'm like, oh... well, do I need to be at the bottom of the ship, or do I need to be at the top of the ship? So I started at the top of the ship because that's how you enter the game. I'm like, okay, up, down, I don't know. Oh, I got to go to the bottom of the ship, jump in.
No.
And then I'm like, okay, no, I got to go to the top of the ship. And then I'm jumping there, frantically going up and down.
There you go.
And then about 11 seconds left, I finally figure out how to open my ship, jump in. Whew.
Nice.
Now, I do want to talk about one thing.
Yes.
Because while I haven't intimately watched Super Metroid speedruns, I've watched them in a glance, right?
Yep.
And so I know there's a thing about saving animals and killing the animals. I definitely killed the animals. I didn't see any opportunity to save any animals.
Yep.
What do you do to save animals?
So to save the animals, right before that, the screen before the one where the ship is on, there's the area you go down. In fact, the room where you fight the original Chozo to get the bombs. If you head back there, there's some animals that are just kind of bouncing around in there, and they're stuck. They're trapped in this room, and it also locks the door. And you're like, what do I do? I can't even leave this room now. And if you shoot the right side of the screen, well, that's a lot of clear time there. Yeah. If you shoot the right side of the screen, it opens up this gap in the wall, and you'll see the animals scurry off through it.
Okay.
And then you can leave, and then you go and you get on the ship, and it actually does change the ending cutscene just very slightly. As the planet explodes, you'll see Samus in her ship fly away, and then just this little like blob of pixels head off to the right side of the screen, off the planet, and that is the animals, which is apparently the canon ending.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really cool.
I actually don't know what, but everybody has always told me, yeah, that's the canon ending because in Metroid Prime, this or that. But yeah, anyways.
Well, I had a lot of fun playing this game.
Yeah,
especially those sequences where you're running away. Those were really fun.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Spring Ball. We didn't talk about Spring Ball, and I've always had kind of a vendetta against Spring Ball just because it's annoying when you're running around in Mock Ball or in Morph Ball and trying to just navigate, and you forget that you have Spring Ball on, and you bounce and just like but. Spring Ball's a cool ability where you're in ball form. You can jump basically, and that's a cool one. We didn't talk about it. I would have felt bad if we hadn't mentioned it. But
it's a great way to sort of not require the power bomb boosting to get to some of the areas that you're supposed to be in morph ball form.
Real quick, more shout out to there's a ton of things in this game you can do that the game never necessarily requires. But the game will teach you. So I don't know if you went down into this area. There's an area with a big, tall shaft, and you enter this room, and there's these little creatures, and they go, and they start like bouncing off the wall. And a lot of people get stuck in Super Metroid and never complete the game at this point.
I got stuck as well because you drop down. There's a save area. Naturally, you save, and you can't get back up.
Yep. So this is how they're teaching you that, hey, there's a wall jump in this game, and to get out of here, you got to wall jump. And it's not super easy. It's kind of particular, and if you can't grasp that mechanic, then you might get stuck down there forever.
Yeah, that's really the thing. I was like, when I saw them, I was like, great, I need to wall jump to get out of here.
Yep.
So jump up against the wall, and how does this work?
How do I do this? Yeah, you just have to kind of figure it out. And then there's also shine sparking, which I don't know if you ever found. there's another area where while you're running by with speed boost, you'll fall through the floor. Yeah, okay. It's another tall shaft and a long shaft at the bottom. And there's this kind of ostrich thing who will sprint and you can run with him. And you'll see that he sprints and he flashes like you do when you have speed booster. And then he ducks. And then he shoots up into the sky, and you're like, what? Can I do that? And sure enough, there's a mechanic where once you're charged up with Speed Booster, you hit down, and then Samus is blinking for a few seconds, and you can zoom across the screen or up, and gravity doesn't matter, and it drains your health. But
so I never
there's a lot of
found
crazy
him, but
stuff.
I did on my own find the ability to jump up through things.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Very cool.
Well, we have reached the end credits there of Super Metroid, but we also had a bunch of other people this week.
Did we now?
This now.
Did we?
So I want to talk a little bit about the Hall of Heroes. Actually, so first off,
yes,
we had more people submit Halls of Heroes applications than ever before.
All right.
Thank you to everyone that participated. It was really great to see your messages. That we're going to show your images and messages here. But if you're interested in entering the Hall of Heroes to become memorialized for all eternity, all you need to do is beat the next game that we're going to be playing, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All you need to do is beat the game, get to the end credit screen, and take a photo of it with your name somewhere nearby, and shoot a message to Saturday Morning Gaming Show at gmail.com or on Twitter, Saturday M, the letter M, Saturday M Gaming on Twitter. And just, leave a comment. We'll read it on the podcast and give you some points for the Hall of Heroes.
Yeah, there's an ongoing leaderboard.
And we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Let's talk about the next game we're going to be playing. And actually, I'm super excited about this because all the games that we've played, all the past 3 games, have been new to me. But this is one I've played so many times, and I would put this on my top 10 of all time games list.
And I haven't played it nearly as much as I should have, so I'm really excited to give it a go again. And I really don't remember a whole lot of it, except for speedruns. So.
You kind of look like the protagonist.
Oh, I do. There's even a Photoshop photo of me looking like him. The next game that we're doing is Half-Life. That's right, Freeman. There you go. There's a command for it. Yeah, Half-Life.
Half-Life on the PC. I think there's actually other versions of Half-Life, but specifically we're doing the PC. I'm pretty sure that if you have a Steam account, you have this game. Because it's given to you for free. So there's no excuses. Everyone's
bundles.
Got the game. Let's see how many Halls of Heroes applicants we can get here.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, and without further ado, let's actually go through the Halls of Heroes recipients for Super Metroid.
Heratham said, just finished my run, did it in 1:27, my best time yet.
Congrats on that.
If you beat Super Metroid in 4 hours or less, then in the end, Samus will be there with her suit off. She'll take her suit off. She's just in military, kind of black clothes underneath. It's not like underwear, but it's kind of shorter clothes. She shows some leg. But anyways, you got that ending, Heratham. Thank you very much. We had, there we go. Nonsense Mejia. Hey guys, just want to say the podcast is great, and including the listeners to complete the games with you is a great idea. It definitely makes picking a game to play easier than just staring at the backlog. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Glad you're enjoying it, and thanks for the feedback on that.
Thanks, Nonsense. Lulu Kachu, excited to see you talk about Super Metroid, one of the best. I could have kept talking for a whole nother hour or two, man. There's so much to talk about in some of these games. Thank you, Lulu.
Now, I do want to do a special shout out for these next 2 candidates. They're the first candidates to have beaten 2 of the games, so they're most likely going to be at the top of the leaderboards.
Ooh. Brisk Mountain, why does Samus like to stay in a morph ball so much? Because that's how she rolls.
So Brisk Mountain is going to be docked points.
We're going to remove your points. Yep. In fact, you're going to end up negative, banned. I think. Yeah.
Yep. There we go. Banned. Brisk Mountain.
But there you go. Gaming Steiner, another retro game down. Always loved the Metroid games. What a fantastic game. Glad you guys are giving me a reason to go back and play these wonderful classics.
Congrats, Gaming Steiner.
It's awesome.
Let's take a look at the current standings.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Booyah!
Boom. All right. So everyone was awarded 10 points for completing Super Metroid. So That gives us with the current leaderboard standings of, at number 8, we have the Kyle Mack with 5 points.
Woo! Tied in third place, we have 5 people who have been apparently, I think, since Mega Man 2, I guess, and Super Metroid. We got Harotham, Nonsense Megia, Lulu Kachu, Jazz Never Sleeps, and Dog Type.
And at number 1, we have Gaming Steiner and Brisk Mountain, both at 15 points. And congratulations,
GG.
everyone. There's still plenty of room on the leaderboards here, as you can see. And Half-Life, people that do complete Half-Life will be awarded 5 points each.
Lufian asks, what were the first 2 games that were played? The first episode was one of my favorites, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and the second one was Mega Man 2. This one was Super Metroid. Next week is Half-Life. I'm very excited to play more games.
Too. Well, sadly, we've reached the end credits of the show, so I want to thank you everyone so much for listening to us on the podcast or watching us on Twitch.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter here. You can see at the bottom, Saturday M Gaming. Subscribe to the podcast or watch here on Twitch live every Saturday that we do it.
And I did want to give a special thank you to TechnoAxe for much of the music during the episode. And if you have any feedback about the show, we love to hear from you. Just shoot us a message at SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com.
For Saturday Morning Gaming Show, I'm Lobos.
And I'm Ryan. We'll see you July 27th for Half-Life.